Hey, and welcome back, Freedom Warriors. We missed you last week. We hope you missed us. Welcome back to Essential Talks, where you stay for the conversation and you leave empowered. Today, we're going to have an open discussion amongst the three of us of kind of our journey, who we are, what we've done, how we got here, and where we're going, I guess. Is kind of what the topic's going to be, where we're going, where we're going to be corralled, and what we believe is going to be going on. So, yeah, it should be pretty exciting. It's been a little while since we talked about us, so this should be great. Yeah, I'll let Kimberly or Jessica go first. Oh, by the way, I'm your host, Jamie Russo, and my two lovely co-hosts, Jessica and Kimberly. You see, you take a week off and you forget a bunch of things. So here we go.
Forgot about yourself.
Awesome.
So I'll kind of break into it first. So for anybody who is new to joining us and hasn't really heard my backstory before, I can kind of get into it. So I started my business. Actually, it was how I got into it was through an ex-business partner. We had joined together to make a business. It was for body contouring, kind of cosmetic sort of treatments like that. And so we started the business. And then we went our separate ways shortly thereafter, as most of our partnerships can kind of end up. Anyway, so I was on my own, basically started a new business from the ground up. And I've been doing that for over 5 years. And so everything was fine, no problems up until COVID. Spring is my busy season when it comes to body contouring type stuff. People want to get ready for the summer. And so so being closed March was like devastating for me. I actually, what was interesting is I didn't see a drop off until the beginning of March when 2020, when more rumors were coming out, more things, people were kind of being more scared. I definitely saw a drop off, and then had to close 23rd of March onwards. I've never been forced onto a vacation before. I've always either had a job or was in school. I've never had 2 months off just for myself. It was an interesting period of time. Definitely you have to get used to, I'm a very much accomplishment-based person, and so I had to get used to just being okay with myself. And so it was good for self-care, learning how to self-care. But obviously the stressors of like, how am I going to get rent for my shop, everything. My landlord was actually pretty cool. He gave me a May free for rent, so that was really nice. I reopened at the end of May because I was just like, I'm done with this. I stayed open. I didn't take any of the loans or the grants. To be completely honest, I was deeply suspicious of the fine print in a lot of them, and so I just was like, I don't want to get caught in anything that I don't understand. I'm just not going to take this. I know a lot of people weren't in a position to be able to do that. So, but that was just what I did in that moment. I then stayed open in secret for the second lockdown. I joined We're All Essential in January, and it was in February that there was a big push to open publicly. That's what I did. I was on top of that. I was like, let's do this. But it wasn't until the third lockdown that my health inspector actually started harassing me. So she'd called a few times to warn me I couldn't be open. I, in all honesty, gave her a bit of a runaround for a bit. I had multiple businesses, and I was just telling her that I was running them out of the same area, and that I had clients kind of here and there just buying stuff. And there's a lot of gray areas when it came to the bylaw. So I was just trying to like kind of play cat and mouse with her a bit. Eventually she caught on that I was lying, and she came on to me way stronger. And that's where I actually made the recording of me getting a ticket. So in the We're All Essential group, we had really put an emphasis on recording our interactions with bylaw. Jamie was actually, it was watching Jamie's videos that sparked me to have the confidence to reopen, because he was always recording his interactions. They were really, the empowerment from them was so great, that I was like, I need to get in on this. And so I recorded my interaction, and it ended up going semi-viral, which overwhelmed me to the extreme. Even though I co-host this, I'm not really the kind of person that likes to be like in front of things. And so, but it was good, but I have a funny feeling that she might have saw it or was told about it, and then doubled down on her insanity. So she was creepily spying on me, my clients, watching from the adjacent parking lots, taking pictures. My client actually ended up following her and taking pictures of her car, just being like, who's this lady? She was following me. And so anyways, so I knew it was my health inspector. I'll be honest, I called the police to file a harassment claim, but they actually wouldn't accept it. They had to actually go up. I had to talk to a couple of different officers to figure this out, but they said that because as a health inspector, they can collect evidence against you, that they were allowed to do that, which I thought was a little bit reaching, but whatever. So I just ignored her, ignored the knocking on my door for weeks. Eventually she texted me and it was super awkward. She was just like, "Hey Jay," which, like, my name's Jessica. Like, no one calls me by the letter J. Yeah. "Hey Jay," with a smiley face. "I have some papers for you. When will you be available?" I did not bite on that. I was just like, I'm not answering that one. So she then taped the papers to my door, which was a letter of the basically the city suspending my business license, and she had other paperwork from me. So smiley face in the text message, like, way to kind of throw me off. Like, anyways, and so the day after that, she came to my home address flanked by 2 police officers who also covered the eye hole with their thumbs, so I couldn't see who it was. And I was like, all I saw was pink, and I could see it kind of shifting a little bit. I was like, oh my God, like, who is this? And so I got my husband to answer the door, and he was in a towel, and he was just like, goes outside. He's like, "So what are we doing here, officers? Like, what the fuck is going on?" And so, yeah. So anyways, she served me a court summons, both for me personally and for my corporation, because I'm incorporated. And that on top of everything, just with the suspension, I was just like, what the hell? So I contacted Rebel News, Fight the Fines. They agreed to take on my case. Perfect. I called the city then, and they told me they were able to suspend my business license because the health inspector deemed me a hazard to the public by me being open, one person taking one client in. Whatever. So the person on the phone, super sympathetic. She felt really terrible for me. They had basically had their hands tied. So she helped me basically getting my business license back. She told me I had to be closed for 2 weeks. So I took the first week off. I was just like, done. Recovered, took the second week to plan. What I did was I rented a temporary location, moved my main machine, set up there, worked out of there until everything was lifted. But after that, I no longer felt safe in my own home or in my workplace. I just felt violated. I just felt like I just couldn't really rest, like, and be totally at peace. I just felt like I don't know, just like waiting for her to just like squawk out of the corner being like, violations. And so I was done with that. And so I basically pivoted my business and I've moved away from that. I don't want to give too much details on what I'm doing because I just, in case she's watching, that's the level of like trauma that caused me. But I'm doing much better now. I feel good. I feel happy in my space, and karma will have its way, and so I hope that she gets plenty of that, just desserts. And that's my story. So yeah, so it's been good. That's where I was at. That's what I went through. It was a lot, but at the same time too, I'm so happy that I stayed open. I made way more money than I haven't even heard back from the ticket. Court summon's still in the pipe. Like, I'm just like, this was like better for me to have stayed open by far. And so again, my kudos to Jamie. Thank you for putting those videos up online in the We All Essential chats, because me, along with so many other people, gave us the strength to reopen again. So that's my story.
Yes, ditto to that. Jamie and Zach's videos were huge for me.
Yes, exactly.
It just makes you obviously have an idea of what's going on, what people are dealing with, but also to be able to unite as a group, as business owners, to get that empowerment is huge. So those videos were amazing. So everyone continue to do that with what's coming up. Jessica, kudos to you for remembering all the lockdowns and what happened. I still can't keep track. I feel like we're still in lockdown number 1 because we've never really gotten out of it, right? So, to anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Kimberly. I am owner, founder, and operator of Glow Lounge. I'm located in Orangeville. I first ventured into massage therapy years ago, kind of right out of high school. Was super passionate about helping people. I knew I wanted to service others. I just didn't know what that would ultimately look like. I did okay in massage therapy, probably got the best grades ever, but I wasn't uber passionate about it. And if my heart isn't into something, I'm out. My heart trumps everything. So I just knew doing the same thing all day long. And it's hefty work. I mean, the average career years for massage therapy is only 7 years as well. So I knew I'd need to look into something else if I stayed in that. But I didn't go back for my last year. And that's when I kind of got into reflexology. I started taking hot stone massage courses, still staying within that, but just not being so focused on one thing. I think for me, it's really important to be versatile in your industry. And I love that I offer an array of things. So, I took my aesthetics course, a lot of other little courses here and there. I'm currently still finishing and finalizing a chakra energy course, a pineal gland detox course, and a meditation course. So I'm still kind of building to my business. I don't feel like I can't stay still. I love learning new things. And I think at this time more than ever, we all need to get in depth and in touch with our internal self, because so much is going on in the external plane out there, and it can cause a lot of mental health stuff with a lot of us. So for me, it was important to open up my place. I was actually put into the position. I've never wanted to own my own business. I'll say that. People ask me all the time, like, is this your dream? No, it wasn't ever. So I'm all about, setting goals and stuff and having A, B, C put together, but you might be going for X, Y, and Z down the road. So I'm a firm believer in not setting strict goals. I stay present. I don't look too far into the future. And no, opening up my business was never a dream of mine or idea of mine. I was just in a very toxic environment, and I knew I wanted to get out. I had a lot of red flags with everything going on, and I gave a 2-month notice to them. In November, I said, you know what, January of 2020, I'm doing my own thing. I won't be here. And it went south really quickly, and I'll say that. That's all I'll say on that. So I opened my spa late January 2020, 8 weeks prior to COVID, which again is a hard time for anyone to open up. I am lucky and blessed to have a very loyal clientele that's been with me I've been in the business and industry for about 20 years. So people have followed me for a while. I've also been mobile, going into people's homes, and that's where my passion kind of started, was that close-knit one-on-one service, that you're actually getting to know the person and you're not pushing them in and out on a time frame. I mean, time is important, but I really disliked a lot of things in the places I was working at. And this just all kind of came to fruition by the grace of God. So I found my place. Everything was in perfect timing and alignment. I found my location. It was big enough that I could fit a bunch of different stations, because I do many services. And yeah, it was difficult. I joined We Are All Essential in the very beginning. I think it was end of December, beginning of January it would have been. So I remember seeing Jamie, you right off the bat, and speaking with Samantha and Vlad right off the beginning. And I just knew I was following so many people in the States that were staying open and doing so much for their businesses, and that were really big influencers and well-known people on the internet, but I didn't know anything in Canada. And We Are All Essential was finally a place that I could gather information and resources and actually dig. I have notebooks upon notebooks of information. I have become a complete research nerd, or was over COVID. I'm not so much now, but so yeah, that's kind of my story. So I stayed open. I wasn't quiet about it at all, ever. I was very open and honest. Pretty much stayed open for 24-hour access if anyone needed to chat, talk, anything like that. A lot of my clients were sending me some pretty scary messages, so I knew this was a mental health crisis and I didn't want to close up. And again, like you said, Jess, I think Walmart and Costco had a capacity of like 475 people, but we couldn't do one-on-one services, right? So there was no science backing it up. There's no data to this day backing it up. And I was just adamant about staying open. I had one visit from bylaw I was with a client. She just put her business card underneath the door. I called her later, and she said I did get a complaint, and I found out months and months later it was from my previous employers because I put in a request for a Release of Information Act form, so you can see everything on your file. But that's the only visit. I've been so lucky and blessed. I haven't really had to deal with what Jamie and Jessica and many others out there have had to deal with, but it's still early, and we're heading into fall with so much more to come. So I think it's important and imperative for every business owner to really do your research now more than ever. We're kind of on a low, not much going on right now. This is your time to educate yourself and become empowered. So feel free to join our network. There's so many amazing resources there. And yeah, that's a bit about me.
Awesome. And myself, I'm Jamie Russo. I own Push and Ink Tattoo Emporium in Barrie, Ontario. The company itself has been around for over 30 years. I moved to Barrie about 25 years ago to tattoo. I was tattooing a little bit before that, so I have about 30 years experience. And I've owned the company for I think 12 years now. So I wound up taking it over. There was a lot of hiccups in through that. There was a major fire in the downtown of Barrie. So I've already gone through a crisis before, rebuilt the business twice after that. So COVID, this time everyone went through the fire with me. So as COVID was starting, actually, I'll give a little bit of a background because with myself, I've been known to research a lot of different topics. So I've gone from spirituality, religions, to tribal, to history, and getting into New World Order and all kinds of government and other play. So when this happened, so we'll go back to March 2020, I went, oh, it's finally here. I wasn't surprised. I knew it'd be played off as a virus out of China. So I've known that for about 18, almost 20 years, that it would be a virus out of China. I just didn't know to what degree it was. So in the beginning, I wore a mask and I was doing all the stupid stuff that everyone else was doing and washing everything and all that kind of stuff. Because through some of my research, I found that it might have been a little more concerning than what it was. But we started to figure it out pretty quickly. I only took those precautions because of a lot of the research that I'd done prior. So when we were in March 2020, I took those precautions. I closed for the first lockdown, and I went home and I probably sat around for the first 3 days because, like Jessica, I don't take time for myself a lot. I really don't take breaks. I'm go, go, go. I've been working 2 to 3 jobs ever since I was, 15 years old. So over 30 years, I'm constantly on the go, right? So I thought, yeah, I'll take this lockdown. Took the first 3 days. Then I started researching. I was watching everything and anything and digging up all kinds of stuff, starting to put a lot of pieces together, getting missing pieces. I started research about common law. And because I just heard about that in December 2020. And so I started to look into that. And we had the lockdown come December 26th. Was the one lockdown. I closed till January 4th so I could renovate my floor because I pre-bought it knowing we were going into another lockdown so I could renovate and have the excuse to close the shop. And then I reopened January 4th. I was low key, didn't have my appointment sign on. I was researching about common law, how I was going to stand. I figured out very quickly that I wouldn't learn it all and I'd have to throw myself right into the fire and then deal with it after. Kind of like a learn as you go situation. And January is when I came across We Are All Essential. I wound up joining We Are All Essential. Started doing a lot of the Zoom meetings. We were interacting twice a week at that time. So it was really good. It was great to kind of learn who was out there, being able to empower other people and be empowered by other people. So I knew that doing videos was going to be an answer for a lot of business owners. They just needed to see somebody do it in Canada. I watched Adamson's Barbecue, that whole fiasco, and most businesses would watch that and say, oh, I won't do that. And me, I was like, how do I sign up? Right? How do I sign up? How do I get in on this? So as I said, I knew videos were going to be the key. So I advertised, and I paid for advertising to say I was going to be open February 11th for a good 2 weeks. And I knew they were coming. So I didn't have anyone in the establishment for the weekend because I knew what was about to happen. And so it happened. I literally called them right to the front door, did the videos, posted them, and the strategy worked because it did help a lot of business owners like both of you and many others, and helped some of them get so inspired that when they opened, they did videos too, and they went viral, right? Like huge, like Shalou at Simmering Kettle here in Barrie, she got millions of people watching her videos. And so we helped inspire her as well. And this was the impact. We started to get to actually touch people across the planet. Now that's pretty good, because a lot of people say, well, what can one person or one guy or one woman do? A lot. You can do a lot, you know. So that's kind of where I went. I brought them to my door. Before I brought them to my door, I made a wager to myself. I like to do these things. I set goals and all kinds of things, but I also set things out to the universe, so to speak. And so my wager was, I was prepared, and I still am prepared to lose everything I own to fight for what's right. So that was my wager. And then I wanted to be able to do videos to inspire others, and then have them come, show the interactions, and then for them to leave me alone. So that this way I could coach as many people as possible. So they came February 11th twice and February 12th, 2021, and then they left me alone. I haven't seen them since. I've gotten a phone call, but they haven't come. So I've been through the courts. They found me guilty. That's fine. We're not done yet. I have a tendency to fight a lot of things. I've been involved with CAS before. I have a couple of mothers to my children. I only have two mothers to my children. And so I have fought CAS, and it took me 10 years to beat them because I don't give up. And that's just it. And we need many, many people to not give up and just stand up. And in the end, it doesn't matter what happens. Even if they wind up getting this fine, if I lose that all, that's the price it pays to stand on the right side of history and fight for your freedoms. We're not dodging bullets, so it's easier to get the courage. And a lot of what's happening is all in your mind, right? Because when you actually look back at everything that they've been doing, it's all been psychological. So I've gone through the courts. We're at this point. I'm still fighting them. We still have a ways to go. And now more than ever is the time to put the pedal to the metal. Don't kid yourself in thinking that they're letting us off the leash. They literally opened the gate to one fence to let us into another fenced area.
Well, we're still in 2 weeks to flatten the curve too. So
Well,
if that
exactly.
tells you anything.
Exactly. I've told many people that because they're like, all these lockdowns. And I was like, no, it's only been one. And when you think about it, we haven't had the restrictions fully lifted at this point.
Yep.
They said they were going to, what was it, April 11th? Now it's being pushed to June 11th. And now
I don't even know anymore. I don't even pay attention to it because I can't even anymore. It's so past the point of ridiculous. Like, we've watched Florida be open, no mask, businesses open for, I think it's a year now. No problems. And so just this idea that like somehow like we need these face coverings and distance and stuff, like it's insane. Like, I've never seen more people sick now than in years previous. Like I got the flu, I got the COVID, and I got a cold this year. I'm rarely sick once a year. And so it's just, we need to be around people. Like, we need to kind of get back to doing this. This is ridiculous. And like what you were saying before with, having been into what would be referred to as conspiracy stuff for years. It's the same thing with myself and my husband, and having looked into this and researching at the beginning. So we were into all that kind of stuff 10 years ago, when it sounded like batshit crazy kind of stuff, like the idea of like a digital ID and things. It was just like, whoa, shadow people and stuff. It's just like, and so now seeing all the things that have happened, and to see the validity to so many of those things, like, no, not all of them are true. Yes, there's a lot that there's bullshit, but there's enough truth behind the things that it's terrifying. Because if you even take that percentage of truth and place them to things that people are saying are conspiracy now, yeah, there's way more to this. I'm to be honest, even though it's just announced today, I'm personally super excited to see. I hope it's not disappointing, but I'm excited to see what happens with the whole like Elon Musk owning Twitter, and if it really does become an actual place for free speech, what that's going to do in terms of like what information is going to then be on there to have an actual debatable middle ground. Super stoked. So fingers crossed. Hopefully it actually turns out well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say.
I will plug Chris Guy's app as well, Friendavoo. I'm a recent follower of that. I love that Elon Musk is all about freedom of speech. I just am hesitant to trust him fully because I think everything he's building, the electrical cars specifically, is all lining up to be controlled by the government. And it's fascinating how it's so perfectly aligned. They're already shutting off electrical vehicles, I think in China or Japan right now. So there's just so much control with what he's doing. And it's just, I don't know. I'm just, I always let my intuition guide me, and I just can't fully trust him, even though I do love the idea of a new platform of freedom of speech for sure.
I do. I love that idea too, but the idea that it could be potentially Trojan horse is absolutely a real fear for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's a deception of a Trojan horse. I think it actually is. So one little story, I'm going to kind of back up, because it was March 17th, 2020. I had one of my employees ask me what we're going to do, because this was the first lockdown, and I wound up saying, just let me think for a second, right? And then I responded to them and I said, either this is a real pandemic and we're about to hug a lot of our loved ones goodbye, or this is the biggest vaccine commercial I've ever seen. So that was March 2020, before there was even talks about vaccines or anything else, right? Mm-hmm. So just kind of going on that is a lot of research and everything else. But we're starting to watch specific patterns happening. We're watching gas prices go through the roof, and we're watching the promotion of the electric car. So here in Barrie, we have a lot of our new car lots on one strip. So you drive down that strip, and Lexus, for example, they have like 6 cars in their parking lot, maybe 8. And I'm not it's crazy. And so they can't get new cars because they don't have the chips, right? And they're saying, supply issue, this issue, that issue. Yet Alliston, the Honda plant, has just put $1.8 billion into the hybrid electric car plant. So you can't get gas cars because of specific reasons. Gas is going through the roof, right? Then you have the electric car being promoted left, right, and center. I just seen an ad for a Ford pickup truck that's electric now, right? And then if we go back to when Elon was promoting the trucker convoy, he also had a whole video in 2017 that showed that they could fully go automated with the trucking industry with the electric big rigs, right? Mm-hmm. What they're lacking is to be able to control these rigs all across the roadways. Well, that problem is solved with 5G. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of, what's happening here? You know what I mean? Is it all these things they're saying, or are they promoting something? They're literally corralling and promoting and pushing you into a specific area. So when you start to see some of these things, you can start to see what they're doing. And that's why we got to keep the pedal to the metal. We can't let up at this point. Yeah, sure, summer's coming and we got to get out there and do things, but at the same point, we can't let off that gas pedal, because you give these guys an inch, they're going to take 10 miles. Definitely.
Yes. Well, this kind of gets into our next topic about, the fall and what's happening in the future and what to kind of maybe potentially anticipate, what to be aware of, stuff like that. And so the amount of talk about food issues, shortages, stuff like that, especially in mainstream news now, it's getting more of a hold on things. You see all the supply chain issues that are happening with China, even just globally in general. And so in terms of that aspect of it, I would just recommending to people to have at least like a month's worth of kind of stored food items, things like that, just in case. You might not end up needing it, but you'd rather have it and not need it than need it not have it. I'll say that, especially for food. So that's something that I've really noticed, is seeing more articles about that, comments, political figures making kind of suggestions here and there and stuff. And that's how it begins, right? Is the kind of the, oh well, maybe, but mid-distant future, and then it becomes much quicker than you realize.
Exactly. And I'm going to promote that whole stocking up. You should have, I would say you should have at least 3 months food, medication, and water. Don't forget your water.
What type of medication would you advise having on stock?
Well, if you're a diabetic, you'd want to have 3 months of insulin. You know what I mean? So if you have something chronic going on and you need medication, you'd want to have it. But I mean, like anything for upset stomachs, Eno, Gravel, Tylenol, Advil, anything like that, wound care, anything. Because right now I've been seeing quite a few posts where there's food processing plants are catching on fire all across the States. Interesting.
Fascinating.
Right? Yeah, and we're watching it. There's a couple in Canada, BC, Alberta area, and they're saying other places on the planet. And then when you look at Shanghai, where they're all in that complete lockdown, what gets ported out of there? Like, how many things come through Shanghai to everywhere in the world? So if you can't see that they're actually creating a lot of these shortages, you really need to start to bury yourself a little bit into some research. It's not very difficult. You need to really start to open your eyes and start to look around, because when we get to that point where you need, you can't get any food at the grocery store because it doesn't exist, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Desperate people do desperate things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like we've either heard people talking about it or we've been discussing it ourselves. Like food shortages, I've been talking about and hearing about since last year. So it's funny that these conspiracy theorists, everything's coming true all of a sudden, right? So I think all of us have seen it coming for a long time. But some people are just new to this too and don't really know what's happening. Another thing people can purchase too, I heard, is there's filtered straws. So God forbid we're ever in a position, a filtered straw, you'd be able to get water from literally any source out there. I also want to suggest the importance of supplements. So Jamie, you mentioned Tylenol and Advil. I'm kind of anti that. So I want to say stuff more like vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium. Magnesium and vitamin D are two of the supplements that people are the most deficient on, or top 3, top 5. So a lot of doctors are even prescribing magnesium to protect yourself from viruses and things like that. So magnesium's huge. B12, if you have access to a naturopath in your area, get your B12 shots, do your IV therapy. I'm huge on that. Liquid collagen is probably like the most over talked about supplement, but I think the most underrated in regards to people don't know what they're taking. If they're taking a pill form or a powdered form, they think that's legit. Your body is only absorbing 30% of a powdered or a pill form of vitamin or of liquid collagen. So that's anything from like Walmart, Costco. It's crap. Make sure you're taking a medical grade liquid collagen, which your body absorbs 90 to 95% of that. And there's so many incredible benefits to that. Like our body system makes up 90% of everything in their tissues is collagen. So there's so many things that I think we can focus on in our internal health too, because I'm all about finding a balance between living this external world, but focusing on our internal health too.
Yeah, that's super good suggestions. I'll say that. I had stocked up on vitamin D and C, but those other ones I hadn't. So that's definitely going to be making a trip to the store to get some. Yeah, and we've been stocking up on food and stuff for quite a while now. And just the straws aspect. There's also what do you call it, Berkey water system things. Yeah, so you can filter your water. Like it was a couple weeks ago. Randomly, our tap water was yellow, and I was just like, we don't live in an apartment, we live in a house. So it's just, I was like, why? It took a full day for it to go away. But situations like that, all of a sudden the water is no longer potable. Like it's like, you're going to need something like that. So I think I'm going to be on top of that Berkey water filter and some straws as well too soon. But yeah, just the stuff that's coming out right now in terms of like even digital IDs to go along with this idea of like a shrinking access to necessities. With what's coming out in Italy right now, they're saying that they're one of the first European countries to adopt potentially a digital ID kind of system where you're rewarded based off of virtuous actions, and it will come in the form of, at this point, I think it's like discounts, maybe free kind of things here and there, whatever they can kind of rope into their scheme, like if a business is agreeing to abide under that kind of a thing. But the idea is that like that could grow then to become, now it's like, oh, you're a good citizen, you have access to butter, things like that. Whereas like, previous times, like you couldn't get butter. That type of stuff. So I have a feeling that that's going to potentially be on the horizon if that's to come out, because they're going to want something like some sort of a carrot dangling system of some kind. I really do think that this idea of them starting a war is just a complete scapegoat to mask everything that's happened. Like I just read an article, something about like $256 billion in spending in Canada over the course of COVID. And most of it wasn't even on COVID related things. It's like, where's that money even coming from? There's just the money printer go burr. Like it's just going nuts right now. And so what we're seeing with the housing market starting to take a little bit of a kind of a cooling mixed with all these things, I'm just like, definitely needing to stock up, but also being aware of everything. The more pushback that they're going to get, the more difficult it is for the adoption of these types of things. So people being aware of this stuff and rejecting it, not using it, not downloading it, just non-compliance. Again, right back to the non-compliance tagline. So yeah, that was an interesting read though, for sure.
Yeah, and as we go through that, basically what you're describing is happening in Italy is social credit system. When you are rewarded for your social behavior, that's a social credit system. So don't kid yourself. We have digital ID coming. I told people this in 2020. I was showing them universal basic income. I showed them, that digital ID was coming. I told them that there's going to be a vaccine passport before they're even talking about a vaccine, and that would tie into the digital ID. I was showing people all this. And so knowing what's coming on the horizon is one thing, and we're not trying to scare the shit out of you. That's the last thing we want to do. What we're trying to do is let you know what's happening, because knowledge is king and it's power. When you know of things that are going to happen, say like a food shortage, and you have 3 months worth of food, well, you're not frightened. Think of how scary it's going to be when you have an empty pantry and you have to go a couple of months without food. So it's just, knowledge is to prepare you, right? So when we go back to the vaccine passport, which came out in September 2020, I was telling every business owner I knew to go and read what they were putting down the pipeline. And if you actually read it, and the ones that did would come back to me and be like, oh my God, Jamie, it's a high recommendation by the health board. It wasn't even a mandate to check for vaccine passports, yet every restaurant was doing it. And it was a strong recommendation from the health board. Plus, on top of that, when did the health board get such power to actually get people fined and put in jail or any of this other ridiculousness, right? So these are things we got to question, and these are things we got to push back on. So with the digital ID, here is the best way to combat it. Buy everything with cash. Remember that cash money? Go get your money out of the bank and go and do all of your purchases with the cash money. And some of you will be like, but I got a credit card and I get points, and I got a this and I get this reward, and I get that reward, and I get that reward. Well, come September or this time in 2023, your reward will be complete and entire lockdown by a system that will be able to control all of your spending habits with no points. So, you know, like when we were doing the whole February 11th, 2021, the grand opening across Canada through We Are All Essential, a lot of people in Ontario, the Premier Ford came out and said he was going to allow us to open on the 16th. And everyone was like, oh, it's 5 days. I'll just wait 5 days. I'll just wait 5 days. Well, 5 days cost you a year, because the amount of people that were actually standing up was incredible. And in fact, at that time, Rebel News was in Toronto because there was so many businesses that were going to open, and they all cowered like little bitches, and they kept their doors locked, and we're here now. Not saying that it would be a huge amount of difference, but at least the government would know that people are pushing back. And this is where we all got to come together and really start pushing back, right? The trucker convoy was amazing because it woke up so many people. It's incredible. And now we got the bikers going to Ottawa, right? So we got to keep this momentum kind of going. Start spending your cash. Go get cash out of the bank. This is one of the best ways, right? And then you're showing, no, I don't accept the fact that you can shut off my bank account, like they did with the trucker convoy. Now, any Canadian, whether you believe the trucker convoy was right or wrong, that doesn't matter at this moment. It should terrify you to know that the government can shut your bank account down because they don't agree with the charity you're giving your money to. That should terrify you.
Huge red flag.
Yeah, exactly. So whether you agree with it or not, because what's stopping them from doing it to you, even if you're in disagreement, right? At some point,
the government controlling how you spend your money, basically. Like that's no business of yours. I'm supporting something that's not even illegal, and in any ways, it's protesting. So it's just like, at what point, like this is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Exactly. And now we're treading into the waters of protesting becoming illegal. They're censoring our internet. So if you say something on Facebook, like, check this out, you're all on digital ID now. You post something on Facebook, someone gets offended, they complain to the authorities, then they lock you out of your bank account.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? Right? This is where this is going. You can't even make this up. China's already there, right? As you said, we're watching it happen in Italy. It's happening other places. They're pushing for it here. You know, Justin Trudeau is literally a puppet of the World Economic Forum. They're not even hiding it, right? Same with what's her name, Chrystia Freeland. Now that's an oxymoron of a last name, isn't
it? Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Them getting Justin being called out by what was it, Romania and one of the other European countries for being basically acting like a dictator. That was really good. I will say, like, this is definitely like something to be aware of, but also to the level of pushback that's happening that you don't see in the news. I keep seeing like articles here and there about the massive dissent that there is in China right now. The fact that they're in their lockdowns, locking people inside their own homes. They're not allowed out for food. Like, people are starving. They're jumping off buildings. Like, how basically in the human condition, if you're pushed to a point in which you are guaranteed death by continuing, and you have more of a likelihood of life by fighting against, there is a flip that happens. It takes a lot to get there, but once it's there, I mean, this is the type of stuff that French Revolution, what threw apart the monarchy in Russia. Like, this is the type of stuff that that's what happens. You can only push people so far before they go slightly animalistic and lash out like crazy as a group. So I'm curious to see what happens in China, and how they're gonna be able to go about that. But I would say, in terms of like positive things that you can do for yourself, continuous education, really, at the end of the day. And I wouldn't say, education about what's happening in the world per se. It's more like skills that you can have, skills that are of value, getting back to kind of basics, growing vegetables, learning how to do that properly, how to mix your soil properly, proper nutrition, how to sow. I don't even know how to sew. That would be very handy to have, to repair your own things. That way you can upcycle your own stuff. Preserving, knowing how to keep your vegetables, store things properly, learning about natural medicine, huge thing. All these types of skills, because not only is it good for you, but as a community to come together, you have something that's viable, that is beneficial to everyone around you. So if you feel lost, if you feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel for you, you have to make the light. You're going to have to find a way to give yourself some level of hope, some level of self-preservation and skill set, in order to make it through the next couple stages that could potentially happen. It will make you feel like you're progressing in the right direction. So that's what I would say to people. I really focused on more growing aspect. I really like gardening. I love plants. I love things like that. I love that kind of thing. So that was the focus that I had on that. I find that very interesting. And yeah, and also another thing too is finding small ways to make side money. I saw this thing. I'm not usually on Instagram too much. I try to stay off it because it's just freaking toxic to me. But here and there, if I happen to be caught on there, I did see this one post that was saying how the 9 to 5 is no longer really that much of a thing anymore. That side hustles are a thing. That basically people no longer have, or that it's going to become to a point in which your one job, 9 to 5, full time, is a very precarious position to place yourself in. You're dependent upon a company in which to keep you on, and without anything else to fall back on. So what the concept was portfolio of income, that you have multiple incomes that make it out to be the whole, and that way if something fails, you still have other things to fall back on. I really like that concept. And it doesn't necessarily have to be from going to 9 to 5 to a full-time business. It's multiple things. Multiple small things can equal to one big thing. I actually had originally learned that concept from my ex-business partner. I will say that she had her faults. I'll give her that. Oh no, don't we all? But she was very much, I never considered the fact of having more than one income to make it up into one thing. And so that was her thing. She's like, if you could have several things going on and it all pays for your bills, what the fuck is the difference? And so I was like, oh, that's fair. It's not like I was getting a retirement plan from my company I was working at anyways. So I really like that. So reframing your mindset around small ways to make money, adding it up to the whole, because it will make you more evenly spread out and less have more stability underneath you, basically.
Yeah, I like that. I also want to bring back the idea of the bartering system, because we all have wonderful and incredible gifts, whether you do it for a living or you haven't found it yet, or you just do it for fun. We all have a very special gift and talent. So finding people that you can barter services for, focusing more on your health, stop spending money on stupid ass shit, get off of Amazon, start investing in your health right now more than ever. I'd say 80% to 90% of my money goes to my health, because that's something I will not compromise, is my health and my integrity. So literally, like for food, supplements, products that you're using, you need to spend money on things that are going to bring your body and your health value. So don't cheap out on that. I once had a client tell me she got magnesium from the dollar store, and I was like, no, it's filled with fillers and binders and chemicals and artificial stuff. So you might have to spend a little bit of money on your supplements and your health, but literally that's all we have. That's all we have at the end of the day. So that's just my 2 cents in regards to where you're spending your money, and find people you can trade your talents with. It's huge right now.
Yeah. There's an old saying, you are what you eat. So that rings really true. I take care of my health. I have a lot of supplements that I take a month. And I was never big on supplements. I've always been kind of on and off working out, because I've always been in sports throughout school and all that kind of stuff. So I've realized the importance of health, and I was never into supplements before, but then I started to learn the nutritional value, even with organic food, excuse me, because we have over-farmed the soil. In order to replace those supplements, you have to supplement, literally, from the nutrients and that these foods are missing. And also to talk about what Jessica was talking about, I highly promote in your area, city, town, village, wherever you are, getting together with your community, building community, learning what you can barter. We've been sourcing out farmers to get cows, pigs, chickens, eggs, and we're doing, we buy a whole cow at a time, and we're dividing it amongst our community gardens. I seen in the chat that somebody was talking about planting and recommendations for growing your own food, since half our country here is cold and wet. So here's the thing, is most libraries have seeds. So you can actually go to your library, get seeds, plant, and then you return whatever you can at the end of the year, so that the seed bank of the library keeps growing. So this is going to be local seeds. Yeah, most libraries have them. I just found out about this now too. So so this is a way that you're getting generations of plants that are used to our climate. So it's a free way to get it, with just the return back at the end of the year. So I mean, getting together with other neighbors and trading stuff off. This is things we used to do, right? You go back to the 40s and the 50s. The mother would stay home because they could, and they would raise the children. Plus, on top of that, you didn't have the takeout like we have. Everything wasn't pre-made. You had to make things. So it was a full-time job being at home. And women that stayed at home should never be discredited because of the amount of work they were doing. And that included also gardening. A lot of our parents' were gardening, and it was, a way to reduce the expenses on the grocery bill. But at that time, also, one person, the man usually, was at work, and at the end of the month, they worked 32 hours a week. They had enough money at the end of the month. They could still go do vacations, money in the bank, everything paid for, didn't really need for anything. And yet here we are, the average household now has 3 jobs and trying to make ends meet, never mind anything. And some people have a lot of toys, but they don't own anything. So that whole slogan, you'll own nothing and be happy, we already don't own anything. We're renting it. Paying it off and paying 10 times more the value than it's worth. And the one last thing I'm going to mention too is that, like, we're not giving any advice, we're just giving ideas. Another thing to think about with finances, because some people are worried about the banks and all that kind of stuff, is gold and silver is also a good investment. It always holds its value, and has been around for thousands of years. And the idea I have is, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So that's also something else to consider. You know what I mean? So
yes, I would say for anybody who's looking for kinds of things that they could potentially grow through the winter, looking for types of greens that don't require a whole lot of light, because you'd be surprised at what you can grow with a light bulb. Like, you can have like microgreens, different types of greens. I would say it would be best that way you could have some sort of fresh greens in the winter. But this is where preserving comes in. I honestly, it's so funny. Like, I'll go for walks with my husband, and every so often he'll be like, he makes a comment about how grass is such a waste of space. He hates grass. He hates the idea of mowing, having it, taking care of it. He thinks it's just the biggest. But anyways, I won't go into that. But anyways, and so the amount of space that we have that is not being used, that's going to change. I really do feel like if there's going to be food shortages or anything like that, the next thing will be basically how to grow things. It's going to be the thing that's on everyone's mind because no one wants to be hungry. And so grass gone. You're going to be planting stuff. You're going to be having things in bags. You're going to be learning how to compost properly. It will come down to, I really do feel like you'll have to basically band together with a community of some kind, either in your neighborhood or something like that, because it's very difficult to survive on your own. It's difficult to have enough space to grow the things that you need to have a well-rounded diet, and to preserve that over the long course. So that's why winters were usually pretty harsh and people would end up eating potatoes, turnips, and canned stuff, or like, preserved stuff. So having microgreens is good. There was also a question about whether the seeds from the grocery stores are good. I mean, there's lots of arguments that you could make for having organic, non-GMO stuff. If you're able to get your hands on that, that would be ideal, obviously. But as long as the seed grows and makes a plant and it's something that you can eat, at the end of the day, when you're hungry, people will be out there eating dandelions. So, I mean, really, whatever you can get your hands on that's going to actually grow some seeds, get it. But if you can make a choice, then obviously non-GMO would probably be better just for your system.
I will say dandelions are so healthy for you. And it's funny how we were all raised to put chemicals on them and kill them, right? Like the irony. And now dandelion cures the seed, you know what, right?
The root, the flower, the leaves, the everything. It's like you can all use it. The same thing with there's so many things out there. I was watching homesteading videos, survivalist videos, the stuff that I didn't know that you can basically, there's a layer within tree bark, like it's the bark and then there's the middle layer and then there's the wood. You can eat that. You can eat that. It's not the tastiest experience, but still it's like if you need something to sustain you, like options. There was a book I was going to recommend. I have it on my phone. I can't remember the name. I was trying to search for it while you guys were talking. I'll see if Steph or if our producer can put it into the comments. But it was a really good book on the old ways of doing things, preserving all that kind of stuff. And so it's really good to have a physical copy of things, whether you're going to print it out for yourself, laminate it yourself, or just have it there, buy the book, which is nice for the author. I always recommend. But having hard copies of things, I would really recommend that. I have a couple survivals kind of books, some gardening books I've picked up over time, but having physical copies can be very good just to make sure that you're not solely reliant upon digital items. Who knows what that's going to lead into the future. I always like to think of, like, if there was an EMP or a solar flare happened, where are you going to be? We're all going to be screwed, but like, how can you be a little bit less screwed, basically? So, and try to work your way back from that.
Yeah, so kind of to tie into that, I'm going to point out a couple of things. If we go back to the Spanish flu, that was 1917. And then 1920 was the financial collapse, and it went into the Great Depression. So these individuals like to do the same thing. So in 2020, we got COVID. And so 3 years from that will be 2023. What do you think they're lining up? Right. So, and this is why it's important to get into these communities, is because we're going to have to be somewhat self-reliant again, self-responsible, but we're also going to have to rely on other people in our community to help us out. So in the comments, somebody was saying something about grocery stores. What do you think will happen? The future of grocery stores. And going back to what Jessica was saying, is we got to start to remember what they were doing way back when. In the early 1900s, men or women could get lost in the bush and they would know what to eat. Now we don't, right? Yeah. So we used to have basic survival skills. So we have to start to remember those basic survival skills. And so where I'm kind of going with this is the grocery stores back in the early 1900s were for more exotic foods. So bananas, which we can't grow here, and that kind of item. And you're kind of pick it up because gravy and everything was made at home. We didn't have packaged gravy, right? So the grocery store had its purpose and was able to get you some of this fresh produce. And a lot of it was for, I would say, single people, But you'd have the butcher shop and you'd have specialty shops. There really wasn't a whole grocery store. This is something that's been newer since probably the mid 1900s, right? So there is general stores, and you'd have your markets.
I think it was when people stopped moving, when they started moving off of farms into like suburbs and stuff, because it's not like you're going to grow this idea of like the quintessential nuclear American dream family type thing, where it was just like, you know, everybody living on the block in the same kind of houses, everyone has their garden and, you know, their grass, and they mow their grass and stuff. It's just, I think that's where kind of like the shifting, because, you know, you had more prosperity after the war. I mean, like if you look at 1930s, like the depression and everything, you're absolutely right. It was just like kind of, you know, key things that you'd be able to get at a grocery store, maybe some flour, sugar, the basics, those types of things, if you really couldn't make that at home or couldn't have access to it. But other than that, it was you're growing your own things. And so, yeah, there was a comment in there was a comment there saying that, you know, vertical growing, that basically per person, you need an acre of food, an acre to grow the food that you need for a year. So a family of 4 would need 4 acres. Most people don't have that. So what are you going to do? So if you have an abundance of potatoes that you've grown, well, there is bartering. You're basically going to have to we're going to have to figure that out as we go along. So this is fairly uncharted territory for most people. I mean, I think we're going to have to kind of model after certain aspects of like Mennonite communities, the way that they stick together, what they do as a bartering system potentially. That way we have something to kind of gauge it off of. And yeah, it's like I said, basically new territory. So this is just something where people are going to have to kind of be prepared to educate themselves consistently and be flexible and learn how to roll with the punches.
Yep. I agree.
So yeah, so in terms of that, I try to stay hopeful. I try to not live too much into the future because that can be a lot of anxiety. There's so much up in the air right now that you really can't get a good hold on exactly what's going to happen. So it's just the remembering to self-reliance. Making sure that you know that at the end of the day, you won't let yourself fail, that you'll always find a way around things, being strategic, being, like I said, flexible and willing to work around situations, working within the people that you love, finding solutions within that. You don't have to solve everything. You don't have to recreate the wheel. There's probably other people who have solutions as well. YouTube, internet is still there. Internet is the best thing that's ever happened in many ways. It's the access of information is infinite, and there's lots of things that you can learn, and you can do it in a fairly short period of time. There's so many things that have fast-tracked information, and so there's lots of things that you can learn in order to better prepare yourself, but also just, again, living presently and learning to enjoy the moment as it's coming, because happiness is fleeting and you have to enjoy the moments as they present themselves.
Exactly.
So well said. I want to just encourage people to not live in fear too. We are experiencing a time of hypochondriac coming back, with a lot of people making fun of people like us too, with mask wearing, vaccinations, stuff like that. So this isn't to instill fear or perpetuate anything going on. Our suggestions are obviously just to bring awareness for ways of you to prepare, and just find a healthy balance of gaining knowledge, being knowledgeable, and staying present and staying grateful and not living in fear.
Perfect.
Exactly. Yep. I would totally agree with that. Once you shed the fear, oh, it's so good. So good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, I still have moments of like up and kind of downness, and that's totally fine. It's just keeping yourself more grounded and realistic. So if you're having a bit of a spiral, if you're panicking a bit, it's just trying to ground yourself again. It's just, you know, bring it back to the 5 senses. What do I see? What do I smell? Just to kind of like bring it back to the right now, but also saying to yourself, like, I trust that I will do everything I can within my power to make sure that I can live as best as I can, that I can do the best I can for the people around me, and staying within that mindset, because there are so many things that are going to try to tear you down right now, and they're doing a damn good job with so many people, and it's just try not to let that eat at you, because that's the poison that they're going to try to impress upon you. that you don't have the ability to survive on your own, that you have to be reliant upon others in this weird dependent relationship, that there is no hope, that you're going to be lost forever. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, we have been through way worse as human beings before. We can definitely get back to where we need to be. It's going to take a little bit of growth pains, but you know, anything worth having was worth fighting for. So this is, I think, would definitely be worth it for everyone and their families. So stay positive. Like, this is it'll only get you down if you let it, basically.
Yeah. Awesome. And another suggestion I'm going to make, because as we were talking about, this is the last point where you want to take your foot off the pedal, but you want to get out there, you want to enjoy yourself, you want to spend time with your family. So here's another suggestion. Do the rough side of camping. You know, that is an amazing experience. Just rough it out, leave all your devices at home, try and, you know, just go out there. Well, and if you haven't done it before, go somewhere local, like that's just around the corner. So if you're out there for a night or two and that's all you can do, go back home. Right? But have that experience, get back out there, get back into nature. This is a whole learning experience that you will not regret, because if anything happens and you need to live that way for a short time, you got it. Right? So it's a good education. It's also a great bonding experience for friends and family alike. Right? So these are all ways that we can kind of cope with this, help deal with this, ways we can push back. So in the fall, we're probably going to get lockdowns again. You can almost bank on it. And I don't care. They can know I'm going to be open. I don't give a shit. Right?
Right.
We all are.
Whatever, la, la, la. Right? So,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the reality of this world that we're in right now. And now more than ever, we got to keep unified and support everyone and anyone, you know, because literally we are all in this together. They aren't all in this together. We're in it together. So, and the way that we win is we stick together. And that's another thing. Always remember that we win. We win. Yeah. That's it. We're just waiting.
Always wins.
We're just waiting for them to figure it out.
And we are all essential.
Yes. Yes.
That's the perfect way to tie it back in. Yes.
The other thing I'm going to mention is like our channels, subscribe to our channels, follow our channels, give us a thumbs up or a heart or whatever you want to give us. Also share this. Some people are on the fence right now and they need to learn some different things. And this might be one of those messages where they hear it in just that right way that gets them motivated and activated. So, I mean, share it with everybody, spread it around. Let's get the word out there.
Yeah, especially if you know anybody who had a business that was closed during those few lockdowns and barely made it through, please send this to them. It would be extremely beneficial for them to know that not only are they not alone, but there are support groups available that are more than welcoming to them, to help them through whatever's to come. If we're going back into lockdowns again and they can't afford that, by all means join our group. We have Telegram groups to help with situations. We have an SOS that helps with emergencies. We have so many resources on the website that can help you with various situations and for you to know your rights. And there's so many people that you can reach out to personally as well too that are willing to share their stories as well as advice and everything. So it's a very wholesome group, and I will say hands down, it was the reason why I had the strength to be able to reopen again, as I said before. So please share this with anybody that you think would be beneficial with as well. And please, if you're also watching this, join our group. It's not only fantastic for businesses, but also anyone who's looking to make a difference and doesn't know where to start. Volunteers. We're always looking for volunteers. There's lots of things that we can help, that we need help with, and it's a great way to make a difference.
Awesome. I think this is a perfect spot to end it. Thank you for all coming out and listening to us. Hopefully we'll have some really good rants in the future. I think this one was a pretty good one, right?
I agree. It was great. Yeah. I feel good. This is perfect. So yeah, so see everybody next week.
Hey, we'll see you then. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.